Hey guys, it's FilterSC here, and I'm back for episode number 5 of my Terran Heart of the Swarm Bronze to Master series. In this particular episode, I really want to take a good hard look at upgrades, kind of show you when you should be getting them, how you can get 2-2 and 3-3 really quickly, and why it's really important. In the game in the background here is a TBT I played on my stream recently. And my opponent played really well. He actually outplayed me in pretty much every aspect of the game. He opened up though with kind of an early Marauder rush, which is actually very smart on Star Station because it is such a Reaper heavy map, because Reapers can get into your base from any angle. So it's really smart opening for my opponent. That being said, because he went for that, it slowed down his expansion. It also kind of forced him to spend extra gas on the Marauders that maybe he would have preferred to spend elsewhere. So in my situation, after the initial pressure was over, that's when I went for the heavy upgrades to really kind of take advantage of that, and that's what ended up carrying me through the whole game. Despite my opponent having a better army composition, a lot of times he had better positioning, his drops were a lot more effective, and I lost 35 SCVs throughout the game. My upgrades are what really carried me through. There's a few really good examples here. One of the most common questions I get asked are, can you make a video for engaging? Can you do this and that? And it's really difficult to make a video for how to properly engage because the situation changes so much depending on what upgrades there are, what units on the field, how everybody's positioned, and that kind of stuff. But by and large, upgrades are the most important part of your decision making in terms of if you should take a fight or not. Because all things being equal, your macro should be at least on par with your opponent, if not better than him, regardless of who you're playing. You should be really focused on making sure that you're always producing and your macro is way ahead of your opponent. If you're not playing a Masters League or like really high diamond, you can just out macro your opponent, and if you have better upgrades, you can stim and A move through his army, and you're gonna crush him most of the time, right? But what you really want to look for in terms of your upgrades and why they're so important is anytime you're really going for and looking for an engagement. So let's say you move out to a space and you're looking to attack him at like 10 minutes and 30 seconds. If your upgrades have like 30 seconds left, what you want to do is just kind of hang around and not fight until your upgrades finish. And then as soon as your upgrades finish is when you want to fight, because that's when you have a big advantage over your opponent. And that's really important to look for in battles, and that can apply to 2-2 and 3-3 as well. If your 2-2 is about to finish, wait to fight until after your 2-2 is finished. Try your best not to fight before that. Well, you'll find that upgrades really allow you to kind of cut through like heavy marine walls in front of tanks and then go through and finish off the tanks afterwards. Once you kind of get to 2-2, fighting somebody that has siege tanks up is not actually that big of a deal anymore, really. Even if you're just on kind of Marine Marauder, you're going to find you're going to have a lot more success if you're really paying attention to your upgrades and you're really kind of pushing them through. Upgrades, especially on a bio player, are extremely important. If you are going to play kind of a bio-heavy style, it's really important that you're at least on par with your opponent, if not ahead of him, at all times throughout the game. And you really take advantage of the times that you have a better upgrade advantage. Alright, so there's no real specific timing that you need to get your engineering base, but what you do want to look for is a couple of different things. Number one, if you're under pressure from your opponent, typically you just want to get the one engineering base so that you can get the +1 attack, because that's really going to help you push the advantage after you finish breaking out. For your opponent to put a lot of early pressure on you, chances are he's going to skip his upgrades on his side of the map. And what's going to happen, especially if it's like a Protoss player, eventually you're going to hold, and when you do, you're going to kind of hit back with, +1 combat shield. You're going to have medevacs and all that stuff. If your crisis management is really good, and you're kind of able to hold on and get all your tech up and all that stuff that you really need, that's going to help you break out. Now, if you're not under any kind of pressure at all, and you're confident that your opponent is not attacking you anytime soon, that's when you want to look to get your 2 engineering bays. And the easiest way to kind of free up the resources and the minerals for that is when you get your add-ons. So if you're getting your add-ons for your extra 2 barracks at like 6 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever it is, that's typically when you can throw down your 2 engineering bays and you're going to be in really good shape. Now if you want to start looking into moving on to +2, one of the easiest ways to time that out is just look at your upgrades when they're about halfway done. That's when you want to throw down your armory, because that's really going to help set you up to get your 2-2 really quickly. And if you are producing, heavy medevacs, you're using Marauders or Widowmines or really, units that take a little bit of extra gas, that's when you want to add your 4th gas as you add your armory. because that's what's going to help power your 2-2 upgrades and eventually your 3-3 upgrades. But before that, you can kind of survive just off the 3 gas. And you're going to be fine to get your 1-1, to get your medevacs, to get your starport, stim and combat shield, and all that stuff. But it's really important that it's basically an automated response. Just tie it to your add-ons and your barracks. As soon as you start to put those add-ons on, then look to add on your 2 engineering bays. And that timing can change entirely based on if your opponent is attacking you or not. So it's not really a generic thing, and it's not something that can just be straight up benchmarked, but it's something you really want to look for. When you do go and you watch your own replays, make sure you take a look at the replay and you go, oh, okay, when I threw those add-ons, I was floating like 300 or 400 minerals and I couldn't spend it on anything. That would have been a great time to get my 2 engineering bays up so that I could start my upgrades. I'm going to remind myself of that the next game that I play. So again, just remember, as soon as you go to put those add-ons on, that's when you want to start looking to add on your engineering bays. Now the next thing when we talk about upgrades is you want to be very, very patient with them. And it's important that you kind of hotkey them and keep track of them. What I like to do with my upgrades is put them on my 8 hotkey, and that'll help me A, kind of start up 2-2 when I'm totally out of the way and forgetting about it. And then B, I'll be able to just quickly check to see if my upgrades are finished or not. And if my upgrades aren't finished, at that point I can click where they are on the minimap and find out exactly how long I have left until my next set of upgrades is finished. Now what you really want to be looking for is just to be really, really patient and wait for your upgrades to kick in. So if you're moving out and you're on the map and you're looking to attack around 10 minutes with your 4 medevacs, typically if you threw your engineering base down at the same time you added your tech labs, your 1-1 would finish at just about that 11-minute mark, maybe just after. And what that's going to allow you to do is just kind of wait, and you don't want to fight, you don't want to engage, you want to kind of poke at him but don't fight. And then as soon as your 1-1 finishes, that's when you take full advantage of your opponent and just crush through him, especially if you finish your upgrades before he did. At that point in time, if all the numbers are equal, a pile ball is actually really, really snowbally, and it's just going to mow through whatever's in front of it. If you're ahead of Protoss and he's only on gateway units, he's pretty much dead. You're going to be in great shape, the exception being obviously Templar. I don't really consider that a gateway unit, but you're going to be in really, really good shape. Obviously in TBT, you're going to be in really, really good shape unless your opponent has a whole bunch of really well sieged up tanks. But typically what you would do in that situation is just back up and take a 3rd base. However, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But you really want to be patient. And the reason the patience is so important is because when your upgrades finish, you're going to win that battle by that much more. You're going to be that much stronger than your opponent, and you're really going to be able to hammer it through and take care of the victory. If let's say there's a fight going on in the middle of the map, you've just made a mistake with your army, you've lost a lot of it, so your opponent's confident to move out. This type of situation can be very difficult to hold. Maybe he's starting to get a good siege line on you, he's starting to harass your 3rd base with a few extra Marines that he has. And all you really want to do is just sit back and be patient, because your opponent really doesn't know when your upgrades are going to finish, unless he's done some crazy good job of scouting you. So for the most part, your opponent's not going to know. As soon as you hit 2-2, that's when you go in, you make your attack, and you can push him back and then maybe swing the game from there, because you just then killed off his army. But it's really important that you're patient. Don't panic. Don't worry about your opponent being knocking at your front door if you're waiting on an upgrade and you have like 10 or 15 seconds left in it. Really make sure that you're conscious of that and paying full attention to it when you do go for engagements. This is going to help your decision making a tremendous amount when you're talking about, can I win this fight or not? The vast majority of my decision making for if I should take a fight or not comes down to the fact that I know my macro is really good. I know I'm probably going to have more stuff than my opponent. Sometimes, yeah, he has more stuff, but generally, I'm going to have more stuff than my opponent. If I just wait to take an upgrade advantage on him, then I know I'm going to win the fight, I know I'm going to crush him. That's about as far as my decision making typically goes in terms of fighting. Obviously there's some units like Colossus and stuff like that kind of throw it out of whack a little bit, but for the most part, if I have an upgrade advantage, I want to take advantage of that. The same kind of reverse applies as well. Even when you're being patient on it, it's really important that you are kind of out on the map and you're ready to take advantage of your upgrades and take advantage of your opponent when he's vulnerable. You might only get a 20 or 30 second gap where your opponent is at 1-1 and you hit 2-2, but that is one of the biggest power gaps there is in StarCraft 2. And if you can force a fight during that time when you're on 2-2 and your opponent's only on 1-1, you're probably going to win the game right from there. It's one of the biggest differences between a Diamond player and a Master player, is the master player will win a lot more games when he has the advantage and he has the lead and he's capable of killing his opponent. Whereas somebody that's kind of stuck in diamond but is a very good player, oftentimes their game sense will cause them to lose games that they realistically really should have won by just making a few different decisions throughout the game. So again, really, like, all you want to do for your attacks is absolutely time it purely based on your upgrades, when they're finishing, and same thing with defending. If you have to go and break something crazy, make sure you wait and you have some patience and you go break it as soon as you get your upgrades finished. Okay, so the first example I'm going to use for this is this game right here. This is also the game you saw in the introduction. But what it is my opponent does a heavy marauder play to try to break through me. Now, he just walks past my bunker, which is very, very smart. He does waste a few shots trying to stop my upgrade, but he does have to stop that. So at this point in time, what I'm trying to do is just clear out his marauders, because it is quite a big commitment, and it was actually a very smart attack on this map, because a lot of people go for heavy marauders. I end up just holding on to it, but because he invested so heavily in marauders, I end up being a little bit ahead, just because my command center comes down a lot earlier. However, once he's made this attack, there's not really going to be a follow-up. He can't, he's lost so much there in order to come back and re-attack me with my infrastructure being so strong and so solid. He really can't do that. I know he's going to be trying to power his economy behind there, at least taking a natural, possibly another base. So what do? I immediately go for my 2 engineering bays at the exact same time, because there's really no threat of my opponent doing anything to me. And if we go ahead and take a look at my opponent's base, we can see that quite clearly. There you go. He's trying to power up. He's getting his 2 engineering bases as well, but his are going to be behind mine, which is going to give me a little bit of an opening. At the same time, he's floating his command center that he made behind his attack, and he's trying to get teched up properly so that he's going to be in good shape to fight me. Again, if we go back and take a look at my side of the view, I'm in really, really good shape because I have my upgrade starting just a little bit ahead of his. As you can see, his have only just now finished, and he doesn't quite have the gas because he invested so much in that early attack to start his upgrades. You can see my economy was quite a bit more balanced as he goes in just to add more barracks and that kind of stuff. Really, really simple and clean decision making. On my part, it's very easy. I can just power up and get pretty much everything I want out of my base because I'm not very worried about any kind of attack from my opponent based on how he opened up the game. Okay, so in this situation, my opponent's pushing into me. I'm not too worried about it. I have a bunker to fall back to if I need to. You can see he's got a few siege tanks lined up here. Lots of scans going back and forth. And I'm just trying to react and kind of stop him from killing off this base. If he commits all his marines here, I kill his tanks, probably his army, and it's just not going to be a worthwhile trade for him. So from my perspective, all I'm doing is I'm waiting for my 2-2 to finish before I move in and attack. You can see he's got a great position here. 3 siege tanks, quite a few marines. Obviously I have more marines, but I'm not playing with siege tanks because I like to be a little more aggressive. But as soon as my 2-2 finishes, you can see he kind of pushes up to bait me into the fight, not realizing this is a fight I want to take, and I just mow through. Again, I'm not too worried about the siege tanks because the marine line in front is what does most of the damage. And I just go through and mop up his army, completely push him back and take a nice supply advantage from that. Really, really simple decision making. All I did was wait on my upgrades. My opponent did finish his +2 attack, but he didn't have +2 armor, which gave me the advantage to kind of push him out. Okay, so all I'm doing here is I scan my opponent. I go, okay, he's still on 2-1. I'm on 3-2. I have a huge advantage here, so despite the fact he has tanks, and I'm not entirely sure what he might have all the way back here, or all the way back here, not only do I have a pretty good army advantage, he's only really got 1 siege tank, and I have a huge upgrade advantage, so I'm more than comfortable to take this fight. And as you can see, I just stim, run in, and my army is going to absolutely mop his up because I have that upgrade advantage. And you can see I'm clipping just before his 2 armor finished and right before his +3 attack finished. So my advantage window there was like 20 seconds at most, and that's what was able to kind of give me the advantage. What ends up winning me the game essentially. So from here, again, you can see just the fact that I have more medevacs up and available is what is keeping my army up here. These guys are all going to run out of energy soon. But I just keep reinforcing this attack until I win the game. It's a really simple and easy way to understand how important upgrades are, and the only real reason I was able to win this game is because I was ahead on upgrades and did a better job of that. So one thing I would like to mention is I never killed any of my opponent's SCVs through harass or drop play or anything like that. I've only killed them now. And as you can see, my opponent's killed 41 of my SCVs to the 28 that I just killed now. That's what's giving me my advantage, right? Just having the upgrades and just huge amounts of production in the background. Alright guys, this wraps up this particular episode of Bronze to Masters. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Remember, you can always find me on Twitter at FilterStarcraft, and you can always find my stream at twitch.tv/FilterSC. Have a good one, guys.